Oh, hi. What's going on? My name is Ruben. Welcome to this video. Today we're talking about language learning myths. We're going to bust up some big old language myths that you may have heard and have taken as fact. We're going to talk about why they're not actually the case and hopefully move your language learning process forward without the worry that these things are true. Specifically, we're talking about pronunciation. I like to make videos about pronunciation specifically. You can use these explanations and apply them to any language you might be learning. And so we'll talk about these myths right now. Number 1, if I just move to a foreign country, my pronunciation will just improve with time. Now, we know that this is a common practice. If you want to learn a language, you go to the country where it's spoken. Not a bad plan. It's not accessible for everybody, but it seems like a logical first step because you're surrounded by the language and you just hear it without having to think about it. But does that really affect your pronunciation? Many people end up speaking with people of their language group. We have Americans that go and travel that find other English speakers. And naturally, in the United States, communities kind of find each other. They speak in their own languages, and you don't necessarily need to use that target language. Also, think about people in the United States, for example, who have lived here for years and still haven't mastered the pronunciation or, still have a pretty thick accent. They've been here, living here, immersed in that American accent, but yet still a little bit of accent. It's hard to get rid of. It's not necessarily about how much time you spend somewhere, but what you do with that time. You can go to a foreign country and absolutely improve your pronunciation, but usually you have to be speaking and making mistakes and asking questions and finding some people or a person that can give you feedback so that you know exactly what's sounding natural and what's not. This is an important step. Getting feedback, asking questions, and figuring out, are you improving, actually? Some people go to a foreign country and still make the same mistakes because no one's giving them any feedback to say, hey, that sounds great, or that sounds not so good. You have to improve. So, go to the foreign country, please travel the world, learn languages, but focus on the pronunciation specifically. Give your attention to that aspect of the language, and that's how your pronunciation will improve and become more natural, not just solely being in that foreign country. Number 2, speaking with native pronunciation or native-like accent is only for those talented language people, right? People categorize themselves as language people or not, or math people or not, and it becomes difficult to break those barriers if you've already decided you are not a language person. People who can hear those differences just have that advantage that they can hear it. It doesn't mean you can't learn those patterns and learn those nuances with regard to speaking from someone who has an ear who can pick those things up. It does require a little bit of attention. But in other videos that I've made in programs that pronunciation coaches like myself work with, that's our job, is to synthesize these accents and to say, this is actually accessible. You can actually say this, but let me relate it to you in a different way. Let me make a different association because it's obviously not working to hear that difference or to use some kind of phonetic symbols or describing where your tongue and your teeth are. So there's a way to learn these nuances and these pronunciation patterns without having an ear for the language, without being a language person. But remember how important the pronunciation is to the language. It's the form. You don't have to be a language person. You just don't. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. But I do practice pronunciation, Ruben. I talk with my friends all the time. And to that I say, well, are you really practicing your pronunciation when you're talking to your friends? Listen, getting serious. For me, it's really important to practice by myself, to make mistakes by myself where no one's listening, or with a mentor, or some kind of coach, a friend who I trust to give me some kind of feedback. And when I'm in conversation with my friends, that's when I'm performing. That's when I gotta speak quickly and get the message across, and I'm not worried about little nuances in pronunciation. I'm relying on my practice just like you would in sports. You don't change your serve in the middle of a big tennis match, right? You don't change your form in the middle of a big performance. You don't change anything. You kind of go with how you prepared. And pronunciation, being this muscle memory and this motor function, is the same kind of thing. So practicing in a specific way by yourself, with a coach, with someone, with a teacher you trust, is and should be a different practice than going into a conversation with a friend or a group, especially a group. You don't want to practice your pronunciation in front of 4 or 5 people. No one wants to hear it. They don't want to hear you practicing piano either. Just saying. Not related, but kind of related. So these are 3 myths about pronunciation and language learning in general. Move to a foreign country if you need to, but spend the time focusing on pronunciation. You don't have to be a language person to identify these nuances or these patterns when trying to approximate or improve your pronunciation. And finally, practice by yourself at least a little bit and consider that time when you're in conversation as a performance. See how that affects your pronunciation. Keep practicing and let's show the world how well you speak this language. See you soon. Bye-bye.